Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music, the best kept secret in music reviews. We are also, Tom, would you agree, the sweatiest kept secret in music reviews.
Yes.
We are extremely sweaty and hot in here right now. We are in our new studio, you know, not in the middle of the cornfields anymore. We bought some spotlights, put them in, and they are just incredibly hot, not air conditioned, so expect some sweat. We might be in the middle of a rant and there could be just beads of sweat. It's that intense in here. Today, for this album review we're gonna do for you guys, we're gonna talk about Metric's new album in 2012, Synthetica. It's been 3 years since Metric's album, fourth album, Fantasies came out. You know, so now with their fifth album, they had such a huge success with Fantasies. Some really just huge hit songs just all over. Everyone was listening to Metric, and for good reason. We loved that album. I think I gave that like an 87 a couple years ago when we reviewed it. I mean, it was literally just one of the better albums of that year. So coming back, you know, how do you come back after that? What do you do as a band? You know, you take that, you make it to another level as a band. You know, where you're just known now. Everyone knows you. What do you do as an artist with your sound? How do you change that? I know what Radiohead would do. They would just, you know, say, screw it, we're changing our whole sound. Now, Metric is much more tempered in their expectations. You know, their fans are important to them, yet they still have a lot of art to their music. So they did try, I think, to change their sound in some ways, and really embrace a more theatrical, more emotional side of things. You know, there was a lot of really sentimental moments on Fantasies, and there's even more sentimental or sentimentally aimed moments here. Whether the effect was as strong as Fantasies, I think, is another story.
And that's one thing that I really like about Emily Haines as a front woman, because the rest of the band, they're very good at what they do, but everything is produced to sound very polished and very, I mean, even when the guitar is fuzzy, it's produced to sound very clean, not grinding and noisy.
Right.
So a lot of that edge and a lot of the emotional appeal because of that is left up to Emily Haines. And one thing I love about her is that she can switch between that kind of edgy attitude driving the song and the more sentimental, kind of inward-looking, introspective kind of content. She can do that pretty seamlessly. And I really respect that a lot because neither of those end up sounding fake. They sound very authentic in both cases. And that's one thing that I like about them as a band and what they're able to do with their sound. Now on this album, I think they played it a little safe in that regard. I thought that, you know, this album started strong, but then there was a lot of material on here that, while it wasn't bad, this is still a good album overall, it just wasn't up to par, especially when they started the album out so strongly.
Right. Yeah, the first few tracks are really, like, you're listening to this and you're just kind of like, wow, they're just nailing it. They're completely coming out, you know, taking what they did in Fantasies, making it better. Tom, you smell ridiculous.
Sorry.
You know, Artificial Nocturne, great opener. And then you have, you know, it actually starts off with that kind of theatrical build and then switches into like the actual song, which I found was a really new step for them. They hadn't done anything structurally like that, at least not on Fantasies. And then busting into the big track, Youth Without Youth. And then two of my favorite tracks on the album, Speed of the Collapse and Breathing Underwater, I thought were a great, you know, just indie pop, indie rock versions, indie electronica really. There's a lot of, you know, very texturized synths throughout this album. This album really took, you know, a nice mixture of piano, electric lead guitar, and you know, there's some really good guitar on this album, you know, both lead and background kind of atmospheric guitar. But they used the synths in the songwriting to really create a nice texture. This definitely has a feel to it that's a little bit different than Fantasies. Now, that works really well with Emily Haines' vocals. I mean, I feel like her vocals come out more, but at the same time, I don't feel like it's more synthetic. And they called it out. They named the album that. So I mean, it is kind of what it is, but at the same time, it makes it less authentic. Now, I gotta say, if you've ever listened to some of their unplugged stuff, these guys, it brings out so much more of the meaning behind the songs. It's just so much more personal.
Sometimes I wish they accommodated that here.
Absolutely. How can you capture that essence on a live album? And that's something that I guess, you know, the Uber fans can go and research and find that stuff. But, you know, if you're not an Uber fan, you know, what about your passerby fans? So you know, just, you know, one listen listen fans. I mean, you still want to give them a good listening experience
absolutely.
too. So I wish
that's how you draw them in.
Right. I wish they would have done more with that, and unfortunately, this just didn't. So I agree with you, Tom, completely. There is a big sag in the middle of the album. I just don't feel like tracks, right around, track 7, I didn't think was very good. The thing the album kind of rears its head back at the end. I really am a big fan of the last track.
Yeah, it's a good closer.
Nothing But Time. Overall, not as good as Fantasies. Still a decent album, but there's just some playability issues and just overall quality issues there. I'm looking at a 73 on this album.
I'm going 72.
So we like this one. What did you guys think? And what's your favorite Metric album? These guys have been around for a while now. They have 5. And so if you guys have a favorite, if you like this one better than Fantasies, we definitely want to hear your opinion. So leave us a comment at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. Also, please follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, because that is where we do all of our talking with you guys, and you guys are what makes VIMTV what it is. So thanks for the watching and thanks for the collaboration. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.